Right, let's get one thing straight. This is not a call for anyone to leave the Mormon Church. This is simply asking the question, if one were to leave the Mormon Church, would it be better to do so today or 10 years ago? And I think the answer might surprise you.
The year is 2016. The now infamous Gospel Topics essays have been released, but of course you've likely never heard of them. The Mormon moment of 4 years ago is perhaps waning, but it'll still be 2 years until Russell M. Nelson declares the nickname Mormon a
major victory for Satan.
That means for the time being you can still talk easily with others about your faith. Brand recognition is good, and the name is not a mouthful. The CES letter was released 3 years ago, but it is yet to undergo its first revision, which will make its tone much more approachable. If you walked away, as many did, because of the Church's November 2015 Policy of Exclusion, which prohibited the children of same-sex couples from being married unless they renounced their parents at the age of 18, if that was your reason for leaving, you may have had no idea that the Church had promoted through art for decades a version of the translation of the Book of Mormon that is not in accordance with first-hand witness testimony. And you would have been 7 years too early to know that the Church was in the process of hiding its wealth through shell companies as you were walking away. You were 3 years too early to know just how massively wealthy the Church was at all, let alone the details of how they went about hiding it.
No, if you'd walked away in 2016, you probably never would have heard the man who announced that exclusionary policy as a revelation from God.
And then when the Lord inspired his prophet, President Thomas S. Monson, to declare the mind of the Lord and the will of the Lord, each of us during that sacred moment felt a spiritual confirmation.
Turn around 3 years later and call its reversal the exact same thing.
As a result of our continued supplication, we recently felt directed to adjust the policy, such that the baptism of children of LGBT parents may be authorized by bishops without First Presidency approval.
It's 2026. The prophet of the Mormon Church is now Dallin H. Oaks, the same man who said,
"It's wrong to criticize leaders of the church, even if the criticism is true."
And yet there have been more and more reasons to criticise the Church and its leadership over the past 10 years. Sexual abuse scandals, the hoarding of wealth, the list goes on. The Church in 2026 finds it far more difficult to keep people from accessing information, both about its troubling past and its problematic present.
More and more people are discovering this information. The Gospel Topics essays are becoming more widely read, and to the Church's credit, things like the Joseph Smith papers are a moment of genuine transparency. Unfortunately, the things that we find in them, not always helpful. All of this, of course, means that people are leaving. And anecdotally at least, that exodus appears to be accelerating, particularly in places like the US and Europe.
People are discovering information the Church had previously failed to provide them with. They are discovering the Church in some instances deliberately withheld information from them, as was the case with the shell companies they created to hide the size and nature of their wealth from the public and Church members. This creates a crisis of trust. And this also creates large online communities as well as content creators who provide valuable resources for those who have started to move away from an orthodox Mormon position. If we go back to our question at the start, in terms of the community and support available for those who leave, there has probably never been a better time to leave the Church than right now.
Studio Nemo is doing a lot of the heavy lifting on this video because, as you can tell by my voice, I'm not very well, and I don't want to be outside too much longer than I need to be, which is why this video is shorter and why I'm now rambling. So anyway, on to the next thing. So here's the catch. Ultimately, there is no good time to leave the Mormon Church, especially if that leaving is precipitated by the discovery of information that was previously withheld from you. It's always going to hurt, and it's always going to come at a cost.
And while discovering that information is more likely now than 10 years ago, I am of course not saying that people didn't leave for those reasons 10 years ago or even 100 years ago. The 1920s was the era of B.H. Roberts, who knew many of the anachronistic problems which still face the Book of Mormon to this day. He didn't leave the Church, but my point is the information was available even then. Fawn Brodie, the Tanners, many people over the intervening decades brought this information to light. However, the advent of the internet and the large amounts of content put on it by the individuals of this new wave of post-Mormon content creation built on the work of those people over those intervening decades and meant that the conversation around those facts has become democratized. It's no longer confined to the fringes. The Church has thoroughly lost control of the narrative outside of itself, and with it their public image.
The Mormon moment that leaders of the church enjoyed about 10 years ago is now firmly gone, in part thanks to Russell M. Nelson.
If we allowed nicknames to be used or adopt or even sponsor those nicknames ourselves, he is offended.
But that nickname didn't go away, and now the church is in the midst of a Mormon moment that the leaders are far less fond of, and have far less control over. If I could sum this entire video up in a sentence, it would be that 10 years ago the church had far more control than it does today over information, even what its members are doing. Members are breaking more and more of the cultural norms that 10 years ago everyone seemed to be following. At least from my perspective. I could be entirely wrong. My brain is addled by sickness. In sum then, this video wasn't a video encouraging people to leave the Mormon church. Sometimes a great title is just that, a great title. And I hope you enjoyed it for what it was, an exploration of the church and its apostate community over the past 10 years or so.
If you did like it, there is a button designed specifically by the brightest minds at Google which allows you to tell me so.
If you want to see more of me, and why on earth would you not? I'm out of breath just talking to the camera. I need to go to bed. Anyway, if you want to see more of me, then you can head over to my Patreon, where there's exclusive behind the scenes videos, extended cuts of videos, and there's a free newsletter where you'll be the first to hear about events and things like that happen, or you can sign up to the tiers to get the video access. It's all laid out. Look at what tier you want, pick it, it'll be great. If that's beyond your means, and I totally understand that, then please feel free to just leave whatever recurring donation you can at the donor box link. It all helps keep these videos being made and keeps me doing this full time. And failing all of that, what is entirely free is this next video right here. To bed. Going to bed.